Hello friends, let's now move on to a poem, Tonight I Can Write the Saddest Lines by Pablo Neruda, the Chilean poet. Neruda was influenced by the symbolist and the surrealist movements. He took the name Neruda from the Czech short story writer and poet E.N. Neruda, who was also the leader of the East European symbolist movement. Neruda's poems have political undertones. Apart from that, he also writes poems that are nostalgic, that contain matters related to ordinary events in the life of a person. So no topic was not a subject of poetry for him. Incidents ranging from political issues or events to nostalgic ones, longings, desires, to ordinary incidents in the life of man. All these were the subject matter of his poetry. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. This poem, Tonight I Can Write the Saddest Lines, is included in the collection 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. Let's now move on to the poem. We will read the poem first and then explain it. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. Write, for example, the night is shattered and the blue stars shiver in the distance. The night wind revolves in the sky and sings. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. I loved her and sometimes she loved me too. Through nights like this one, I held her in my arms. I kissed her again and again under the endless sky. She loved me sometimes and I loved her too. How could one not have loved her great still eyes? Tonight I can write the saddest lines. To think that I do not have her. To feel that I have lost her. To hear the immense night, still more immense without her. And the verse falls to the soul like dew to the pasture. What does it matter that my love could not keep her? The night is shattered and she is not with me. That is all. In the distance, someone is singing. In the distance, my soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. My night searches for her as though to go to her. My heart looks for her and she is not with me. The same night whitening the same trees, we of that time are no longer the same. I no longer love her, that's certain. But how I loved her. My voice tried to find the wind to touch her hearing. Another's, she will be another's like my kisses before, her void, her bright body, her infinite eyes. I no longer love her, that's certain, but maybe I love her. Love is so short, forgetting is so long. Because though nights like this one I held her in my arms, my soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. Though this be the last pain that she makes me suffer, and these the last verses that I write for her. Neruda seems to say that he is now able to write the saddest lines. Write, for example, the night is shattered. He could also talk about his lost love. The night seems to be shattered because he is constantly reminded of his lover. And the blue stars shiver in the distance. He makes use of nature imagery here to talk about his lost love. The night wind revolves in the sky and sings. So just as his verse now sings for his lost love, the night wind too sings. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. I loved her and sometimes she loved me too. The line, tonight I can write the saddest lines, is a refrain because it appears continuously. Or he uses it repeatedly. I loved her and sometimes she loved me too. Probably this happened in the past. Now he's not sure whether he actually loves her. Of course, he says, I did love her. And he doesn't know whether she loved him always. But then he thinks she should have loved me. Through nights like this one, I held her in my arms. And now he talks of his loneliness because he now feels lonely at night. He is reminded of those night times where he used to hold his beloved. I kissed her again and again under the endless sky. He is unable to forget the times that they had had together. She loved me sometimes and I loved her too. How could one not have loved her great still eyes? Now, he admires her eyes, and of course he's not reminded of the looks that she used to give him. Tonight I can write the saddest lines. To think that I do not have her, to feel that I have lost her. Again, this is nothing but a desperate attempt to forget the past, but he is not able to do it. And he feels pain, the pain of remembering. See, to think that I do not have her. Again, he's reminded of the times that he's had with her. To feel that I have lost her. To hear the immense night and still more immense without her. He feels that he cannot escape the pain of remembering. And the verse falls to the soul like dew to the pasture. So poetry is a means, or it's a tool to replenish his soul, just like the dew that would fall on the pasture. What does it matter that my love could not keep her? The night is shattered and she is not with me. Again, he laments the loss of his lover. This is all. In the distance, someone is singing. In the distance, my soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. His soul is unhappy that it has lost her. My sight searches for her as though to go to her. And of course, his eyes search for his beloved. My heart looks for her and she is not with me. Again, his heart looks for her, but then she is not with him. The same night whitening the same trees, we of that time are no longer the same. Times have changed. The trees that were once green are now white. They are white because of the night. We of that time are no longer the same. They are two separate people now. They no longer share the same attitudes or the same feelings for each other. I no longer love her, that's certain, but how I loved her. Now he's trying to come out of the despair. And he says, I don't love her anymore, but I did love her. My voice tried to find the wind to touch her hearing. Another's, she will be another's. And now the lover has left him forever. And very soon, she's going to become somebody else's. Like my kisses before, her void, her bright body, her infinite eyes. So he's not able to forget any of those moments he had spent with her. I no longer love her, that's certain, but maybe I love her. Life is short. Forgetting is so long. Now, it's a very painful exercise to forget. Love is short. It's very easy to fall in love. It doesn't take much time. But to forget the lover is difficult and it takes a longer time. Because through nights like this one, I held her in my arms. My soul is not satisfied that it has lost her. Again, he goes on repeating the fact that he had loved her and he's going to find it very difficult to forget her. But it is sure that he will forget her. Though this be the last pain that she makes me suffer, and these the last verses that I write for her. He is determined not to feel unhappy about losing his lover. And he understands that these are the last lines that he's going to write in praise of his lover. Now this particular poem talks about sorrow or lost love. The main theme of this poem is about lost love. The writer juxtaposes painful memories with those of memories or with those of moments in the present. And he doesn't know what he would do in future, but he's sure that he's never going to lament the lost love. A lot of nature imagery is used to bring back memories of his love. And one of the most important themes of this poem is alienation and loneliness. However, the remarkable quality of this poem is the fact that it is being called a poem which Donald Davy labels articulate remedy. Now, articulate remedy in the sense these poems come under the category of articulation poems that have redemptive quality, which redeem or relieve the narrator or the author of some problems. and the poems generally end on a resolution. Here again, this narrator here declares that he feels sad about his lost love. But towards the end, he has taken the decision that he would no longer be affected by the pain that is caused from the separation from his lover. And so he says that he would no longer be affected by the pains caused by his beloved, and this could be the last poem that he would ever write for his lover. The poem makes use of nature imagery to talk about the feelings that he has had for his lover. Of course, this poem has a universal quality which talks about loss of love and how could one recoup, or how could one come out of this pain or suffering of lost love. Hence, there are several universal qualities in this poem, and this poem is not a poem that could just be categorized into one type of poem meant for a certain group of people, but this poem is meant to be read and enjoyed by everyone because it talks of the universal quality of love. Until we move on to the next poem, bye. Hello friends, let's now move on to the poem Some Advice to Those Who Will Serve Time in Prison by the Turkish poet NAZIM HIKMET. NAZIM HIKMET is considered the first modern Turkish poet. It is believed that he fled to Moscow in 1922 when his hometown Istanbul came under the control of the left allies after the First World War. In Moscow, he attended the university and was acquainted with a host of writers, poets, educators with different ideologies. Hence, he was naturally drawn to the diverse cultures and perspectives of the different personalities he met with. However, he was particularly drawn to the left ideology, especially the Bolshevik Party, and hence became an ardent communist. His writings reflected his ideas on left policies, communism in particular. In 1928, he returned to Turkey. However, his writings weren't accepted and the government turned hostile. He was sentenced to years of imprisonment. Ultimately, in 1951, he left Turkey for good. For a short period of time, between 1924 and 1928, he had occasionally visited Turkey only to return to Russia because his works weren't censored there. He is particularly known for his poem, I Come and Stand at Everyone's Door, which is written from the viewpoint of a child who was killed in the Hiroshima bombing. Let's read the poem first and then explain some advice to those who will serve time in prison. If, instead of being hanged by the neck, you're thrown inside for not giving up hope in the world, your country and people, if you do 10 or 15 years apart from the time you have left, you won't say, better I had swung from the end of a rope like a flag. You'll put your foot down and live. It may not be a pleasure exactly, but it's your solemn duty to live one more day to spite the enemy. Part of you may live alone inside like a stone at the bottom of a well, but the other part must be so caught up in the flurry of the world that you shiver there inside when outside, at 40 days' distance, a leaf moves. To wait for letters inside, to sing sad songs, or to lie awake all night staring at the ceiling is sweet, but dangerous. Look at your face from shave to shave, forget your age, watch out for lies. And for spring nights, and always remember to eat every last piece of bread. Also, don't forget to laugh heartily, and who knows, the woman you love may stop loving you. Don't say it's no big thing. It's like the snapping of a green branch to the man inside. To think of roses and gardens inside is bad. To think of seas and mountains is good. Read and write without rest. And I also advise weaving and making mirrors. I mean, it's not that you can't pass 10 or 15 years inside and more. You can, as long as the jewel on the left side of your chest doesn't lose its luster. The poet says that if one has to serve time in prison, now look at the word that he uses. One has to serve time in prison. He doesn't consider time in prison as punishment, but a form of service. And the whole poem is about the explanation to why he says that the time spent in prison could be considered a service. He says, if instead of being sentenced to hang by the neck to death, one has to serve time in prison, it's better not to give up hope. It's better to remain determined. It's much better not to contemplate suicide. And that's why he says, better I had swung from the end of a rope like a flag. It's not advisable to contemplate suicide, to hang at the end of a rope like a flag. That's a simile there that he uses. You'll put your foot down and live. It's better to remain determined to live. It may not be a pleasure exactly. Of course, spending long years in prison is not an activity that gives happiness, but it's your solemn duty to live one more day to spite the enemy. You've been sentenced in prison. It's better not to give up hope, but endure all the oddities that you have to face. And this way, life becomes a challenge. Part of you may live alone inside like a stone at the bottom of a well. So part of the person would live inside in solitary confinement like a stone at the bottom of a well. When a stone lies at the bottom of the well, the stone doesn't know what's happening outside. So one part of the self remains inside. It lives solitary, it lives all alone, not concerned about what's happening outside. Again, he makes use of a simile by saying, like a stone at the bottom of a well. But the other part may be so caught up in the flurry of the world. But the other part should know what's happening outside. That you shiver there inside when outside at 40 days distance a leaf moves. You get to know of all the changes that are happening outside. The social, economic and political changes that are happening outside. This also reflects the long years of imprisonment that HIKMET had to undergo while he was in Turkey. And it's for the same reason that he fled Turkey forever in 1951. He says, to wait for letters inside to sing sad songs or to lie awake all night staring at the ceiling is sweet but dangerous. One could spend hours and hours staring at the ceiling, longing for letters from beloved ones, to sing sad songs, or to lie awake all night. All that's sweet because it brings back memories, but it's dangerous. For longing weakens a prisoner's determination. One need not wait for letters to come. One need not sing sad songs. But look at your face from shape to shape. Try to make yourself presentable. Forget your age. Do not think about monotony. Forget your age. Watch out for lies. Groom yourself well. And for spring nights. Wait for better times, but don't be too desirous for better times. And always remember to eat every last piece of bread. It's always desirable to eat every last piece of bread, which means to retain one's physical health. One has to not only be mentally strong, but physically active. Also, don't forget to laugh heartily. And most important, one has to learn to remain happy, even in the most difficult situations. And who knows, the woman who loves you may stop loving you. It's quite natural that a person who has to serve long years of imprisonment, the woman who had loved the prisoner, would never return to him. Don't say it's no big thing, but this cannot be taken too lightly, because it's like the snapping of a green branch to the man inside. It's an emotional blow. It's one of the worst blows that a man could ever get. However, this should not shake his determination. This should not shake his resolution to remain alive and live life happily, as before, as nothing has happened to him. To think of roses and gardens inside is bad. It's not good to think only of roses and gardens or those spaces which are in confinement. But one must be able to think of seas and mountains where you enjoy infinite freedom. Read and write without rest. It's good to read and write. Continuously engage in meaningful activities without rest. And I also advise weaving and making mirrors. One could also indulge in activities like weaving, making mirrors to spend time. I mean, it's not that you can't pass 10 or 15 years inside and more. This way, what happens is one is able to spend time in a better manner than think negatively or think of experiences or brood over unnecessarily. One mustn't think of roses and gardens, but one must be able to think of freedom that is symbolized by the seas and mountains. The freedom that nature enjoys. Nature that is not confined. You can, as long as a jewel on the left side of your chest doesn't lose its luster. So far as you don't give up, it's good. But it's all the more important to see to it that you don't lose your heart, the sense that you don't give up. At the same time, you focus on becoming a better person. It's very important for a person to listen to one's heart, but it's also important to preserve the happiness in a person. And that's why, as long as the jewel refers to the heart, it's a metaphor there. As long as the jewel on the left side of your chest doesn't lose its luster, the shine, the happiness that the heart preserves. If a jewel loses its luster, it becomes valueless. Similarly, it's only when the heart learns to enjoy. It's only when the heart learns to appreciate. It's only when the heart focuses on the right emotions, on positive emotions. It's only when the heart learns to love others that the heart doesn't stop losing hope. It's very important for a person to remain not only active but also cheerful, to follow one's heart's desires, to pursue relentlessly, to laugh, to ignore painful losses. And it's also important not to fall prey to monotony. This is a theme of the poem. This poem tells us about the activities that prisoners could engage in. The activities that prisoners could engage in order to preserve themselves, in order that they don't lose hope, in order that they could set an example for others to follow. The poem could be considered a defensive mechanism to survive incarceration or long years of imprisonment. The mental and physical tortures that prisoners have to face is recounted. However, even in the face of such moments, it's important to retain one's happiness. And if one has to remain mentally and physically strong, one has to take care of oneself. This is very important. A prisoner cannot be considered a natural citizen once he is out from the jail, because the fact that he has been in prison would always linger. Hence, it's all the more important for a prisoner to see to it that he keeps himself not only physically fit, but also mentally strong to face any discrimination or any form of injustice. All the more, It's more important for a prisoner not to emerge hard-hearted and bitter, but to realize the goodness in oneself and come out better, or you could say a better version. This is the theme of the poem. After this, we would do the poem Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. Hi. We now move on to the poem Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes needs no introduction because he is the pivotal poet of the Harlem Renaissance. He was subjected to racial discrimination during the years at Missouri and Kansas City. This poem, Mother to Son, was first included in the December 1922 issue of The Crisis, the mouthpiece of the NAACP. In 1926, the poem was included in his collection called The Weary Blues. Let's move on to the poem before we analyze it. Mother to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't be no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor. Bare, but all the time I've been a climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back, don't you sit down on the steps 'cause you finds it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now. For I've still going, honey. I've still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair. This poem was alternatively titled Crystal Stair, but it's Mother to Son that remains. The title Mother to Son that is most famous. Now, why is it called Mother to Son? The poem is written in the form of a dramatic monologue, which means it opens very dramatically. And it's a message or an advice from a mother to a son. The mother says, well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Now, the image of the crystal stair is used. A stair is used to climb. When a person climbs a stair, it could be steady or unsteady. And unless the climb is steady, the destination cannot be reached. If you climb on a crystal stair, you have to be careful. It's not only that you have to be careful, but many a times when you're climbing a crystal stair, you could reach your destination. However, the mother says that for her, life has not been smooth as a crystal. She had to face lots of difficulties. And so, life for her was not a crystal stair. A stair is used to climb. The black woman here climbs the stair. She has to reach a destination. And the climb is slow, but it's steady. It's had tacks in it. There are small, sharp, broad-headed nails called tacks and splinters. Splinters are broken pieces of wood and boards torn up, and the boards are not smooth. The surface of the boards is not smooth. It's torn up and places with no carpet on the floor. The floor is not concrete. The floor is not smooth. The floor is not strong. Bare. But all the time I've been climbing on. Now the floor is bare. Again, he makes use of an imagery there, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. So the floor is bare. There's no carpet that would protect her legs from the tacks or the small nails on the boards. The boards are shaky. But all the time I've been a climbing on. Yet she has the optimism, or she possesses the audacity to climb on and reach in landings. And she lands from one step to the other and turning corners. The climb is not a straight climb. There are corners that she has to turn. Now the corners represent the challenges or the tests that she has to face. And reaching landings and turning corners. And sometimes going in the dark. And sometimes she has to grope in the dark because she feels confused. She feels helpless. She feels hopeless. So there are not only bright moments, but there are challenging, testing moments as she climbs the stairs. As she climbs the stairs of life. So boy, don't you turn back. However, she advises the boy never to turn back in the face of difficulties. Don't sit down on the steps. Don't you sit down on the steps. Even if you find the steps are shaky, don't sit down there. Don't rest. Cause you find it kinda hard. Don't you fall now. And so he says, it's not right for you to fall. Be mindful of your steps. Take care of the steps that you take. Life has not been very easy for the mother. And so she tells her son, there could be days where there is no light. There could be days when you feel that you are neglected, you are ignored, you are insulted. Whatever you come across, whatever difficulties you come across, whatever forms of difficulties you come across, never sit down on the steps. Always take a step ahead, just as I do now. But be careful, she says, for I'm still going, honey. I've not yet stopped moving. I'm still climbing. I still climbing. Now you see, I'm still climbing those stairs. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Life has not been very comforting. The climb has not been very smooth. But if one takes careful steps, if one sees to it that one doesn't lose self-confidence, hope, then the climb would definitely be a success in spite of all the difficulties that come across. This poem is written in the form of a dramatic monologue, as I said before, and it particularly makes reference to the black woman, not just one woman, but the entire black womanhood. This poem is a counter-narrative to all the depictions of the black woman as exotic. It shows that the black woman is a person who's not domineering. She is not a person who's egotistical or an enticing woman, but somebody who's strong-willed, courageous, warm, at the same time very understanding and caring. Some of the important themes in this poem could be hardships that one has to face in life, the courage with which a person has to move on, the importance of dignity and determination while facing problems, and of course, the most important is the fact that one has to face discrimination in every sphere of endeavor. In the sense, whatever we do in life, it could be accepted, it could be rejected. One could be discriminated. Whatever forms of discrimination one faces, one has to learn to stand up for oneself and realize goals and ambitions. Now this poem is a free verse poem where there is no specific rhyme scheme, no specific meter. The main reason why he had to write this poem is to show that black women are not the way in which the white racist society had interpreted them. Black women possess all the courage to stand up for themselves. And this is exactly what the mother tells the son to do. to stand up for himself, to face the world as it is, to rise and shine, to prove oneself in the face of oddities in life. The central metaphor of this poem is a stair, and the act of climbing reflects the struggle that the black race is presented through the act of climbing the stairs. Hence, this poem is very important as far as the history of black womanhood is concerned. We'll now move on to the next poem by Namdeo Lakshman Dhasal, Stonemasons, My Father and Me.